as always, at the end of today. Right, let's get stuck into it. Well, what I wanted to explore today was these kind of, I guess, post-minimal sort of evolving patterns. You heard me performing kind of something in the introduction there. It's very inspired by Steve Reich, minimal composer from America. So I want to take a look at how to build this rack in these sort of things that can just continue to evolve and change and interact with each other. But we're only changing certain parameters at a time, so that some things, perhaps the accent pattern stay the same, or perhaps the note pattern stays the same and the accent pattern changes. So let's take a look at exactly what I've got going on here. I've got this little clicky, glitchy, beepy rack. We're going to look at how to make that. That's a very, very quick one. And then we're going to look at this rack. And this rack basically has two voices. One voice there. And another voice there. And each of those voices, let's go back to this first one, we can change certain parameters. So we can change how long the sequence of notes is. One note, all the way up to 16 notes. And we can change how often those notes are being triggered. This is a Euclidean sequence in here. We're going to look at how to set this up so that we get different rhythmic patterns of notes. And then how to keep that pattern the same. So let's make it down short so we can... But now we're actually going to change the notes. So the rhythmic pattern stays the same, but the note pattern changes. And then we can do the same thing on this other layer here. Rhythmic pattern stays the same. Notes change. Maybe we change the length of the sequence. Make it happen more often. And so we have these few little things that we can change with both patterns. Let's bring the first one back in. And we can change both at the same time. Super nice. And we're getting a couple of crunchy notes in there. And I'm going to take a look at why that is happening as well. So let's turn that off. Let's mute that. Let's turn this off. Let's mute that. And let's start from the start. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to bring in a drum rack. I'm going to go to instruments over here. I'm going to select drum rack. I'm going to bring that drum rack in here. And in front of the drum rack, I'm going to bring a MIDI effect. We're going to use the rotating rhythm generator. I've looked at this device before in a bunch of tutorials. It's a really interesting sequencer that offers us Euclidean options. I'm not going to dive so much into exactly what that is, but we're going to take a look at a couple of things. So I'm now going to bring in a SQ sequencer onto the C1 note. And I'm also going to bring in an SQ sequencer onto the C#1 note because we're going to need that later as well. Let's go back to the C1 note, and I'm going to bring in an instrument at the end here so we can hear what's going on. And I've used it a couple of times in recent videos. I'm going to use this instrument I made from multi-sampling a glockenspiel. There's a tutorial about that. Link in the description below if you want to grab this exact instrument or learn how to make these instruments yourself. So I'm going to drag that in after the sequencer here. And did I put that on the right one? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Right. Okay, so we're not hearing anything yet. Why are we not hearing anything yet? Let's turn the rotating rhythm generator off for now, and the sequencer is just triggering stuff by itself. So let's take a look at what notes are coming out of the sequencer. It's probably something to do with the range on this glockenspiel instrument. So I'm going to bring in a MIDI effect. I'm going to use a MIDI monitor. And we can see it's triggering C3, and I think that's too low. So I'm going to bring in a pitch device in here, and I'm going to pitch it up an octave. There we go. There we go. And I'm going to bring in, I'm using the same pitch device. No, I'm going to bring in another pitch device afterwards, and we're going to constrain the range. So I believe that this glockenspiel goes from, let's put this afterwards. So this is C4, yeah. So it goes from G3, come on, G3. It's 2 octaves, so that's plus 23, and I'm going to choose the fold mode. So that means whatever notes are coming out of here is going to fold those notes into the range of notes that are getting played. If you're using a regular synthesizer, you don't need to worry about doing those steps. That's just so I can use this particular instrument. Right, so I can now randomize this sequence. We're sounding like Danny Elfman all of a sudden. Let's bring in a scale device, and I'm going to put that in right before the instrument here. And I'm going to choose, let's go with F Dorian. So now every time we're getting a different sequence. This is really nice. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn change the transport mode here, or change the clock mode here. We're going to change it from transport to MIDI, and we need to press play here. So now this is going to move through the sequence one step every time it receives a MIDI note. And so we're going to do that using the rotating rhythm generator. So if I turn this back on, and the rotating rhythm generator is now generating notes at 16th notes, and so we can see it moving through the sequence here. We're going to actually use the Euclidean steps here. I'm going to turn this down to 16, which automatically turns that down to 16. So what this will do is if I bring this down to, say, something lower, let's go with 8. So now it fills these 16 16th notes with 8 16th notes, and it spaces them as evenly as possible. So obviously what that's doing is playing every second note. So if I was to do this 4, it's every fourth note. But what gets really interesting is when these are sort of odd numbers. So if it's something like 11. So it's still filling these 16 steps with 11 steps as evenly as possible. So we're getting this even spread, except it's, sort of missing out notes every now and then. This is really nice. Let's put this back to 16 for now. That's super nice. Okay. And now we can change the length of this sequence. And I'm going to change this to 16 steps here. Super nice. I can unlink the pitch. And now I can change the length of the pitch here, which is really nice. And I can also do the same with the velocity, and we can also randomize the velocity. So this is super nice. So already I'm going to group all of this, turn it into one big rack. Probably that as well. And that as well. Yeah. Let's already start mapping some macros. So I'm going to open up all of the macros here. And we're basically going to map the same thing on the top and the bottom row for the two different voices that we're going to make. So, what's the first thing that I'm going to map? I'm going to map this subdivision here. Right click, map to macro 1. Super nice. I'm going to right click this steps and map this to macro 2. And I'm already going to change the range of that to go from 0 to only 16. Offset, no, I don't want to be changing the offset. Okay, is this... Yeah, so this is now changing the steps. You'll hear it stopped. That's because it automatically constrains the fills when I turn it down. Let me show you that in action. So I'm going to map that to macro 3. Now I'm going to turn the fills all the way back up. And now you'll see as I turn this down, it's turned the fills down to 13. But when I turn the steps back up, it keeps that at 13. It doesn't update it here, which is a little bit annoying. We have to sort of go down and then back up. And I'm going to make this... Is that what I want to do? Yeah, so now if I turn this all the way down, this... yeah, I'm going to change this range on the fills to all the way to 64. Is that what I want to do? Yeah. So now we get a much more even spread. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, super nice. Okay. Right, what else are we going to map to some macros? Well, now let's map some stuff from the sequencer here. So I'm going to right-click on the pitch length. I'm going to map that to macro 4, which is inside the drum rack, and I'm going to right-click and map that to macro 4 in the main rack. So this is going to be the Oh, wait, is that what I wanted to do? Yeah, this is going to be the sequence length. Sequence length 1. And I'm going to do the same thing for the velocity. I'm going to map that to that same macro. So now Yeah, so now this is controlling how many steps along the note sequence is. Super nice. Right, I'm also going to make a thing where I can sort of quite easily pitch that up, like one or two semitones, or maybe up to 12. So I'm going to bring a pitch device in right before the scale. I'm going to right click and I'm going to map that to macro 5, and I'm going to right click and map that to macro 5. I'm going to constrain the range on this one so it goes from -12 +12. Actually, that should be one step over here, so it's before my constrain the range thing. So now if I turn up the sequence length, now if I turn this up, super nice, or down. So it's that taken that whole sequence and transposed it up and down, which is really nice. Now I'm going to bring in a velocity device and I'm going to put that in here. I'm going to just turn up the minimum velocity a little bit and turn down the maximum. I'm going to right click and map that output velocity to macro 7. I'm going to map that output velocity to macro 7 over there. I'm going to constrain the range here so it never goes all the way up. Let's make it go sort of maximum 100. Oh no, let's leave it. Let's leave it. Let's leave it. So now, yeah, super nice. And now let's map this macro 8 as the volume of that chain. So where's that gone? Where's that gone? I want to open up the instruments here. Yeah. I'm going to right click, map that to macro 8. And right click, map to macro 8. Super nice. This one I'm leaving because, let's do it now. Let's add an effect after the glockenspiel sound. So I'm going to use an effects rack that I've made, a 4-tap granular delay rack. Let's drag that in only on here. Super nice. And let's map these gains to something. So I'm going to right click, let's map that to macro 6, right click and map that to macro 6. And let's call this, and right click, map that to macro 6, and let's call this delay level, super nice. Yeah, really nice. Okay, we're doing good. Right, let's focus on the other sound for a little bit now. So I'm going to mute that and let's come back to this one. So we don't have any instrument in after this one yet. I'm going to call this sound 1. I'm going to call this sound 2. Bet you didn't see that coming. Let's use collision in here. I think this would be really nice. Instruments, collision. We're going to make some kind of... Yeah, already. I quite like this instrument. Let's give it some velocity randomization so we can add some velocity information to stuff. So let's add velocity information to the stiffness over here. So mallet stiffness. Mallet volume as well, I think would be nice. Yeah. Let's add some noise in. Super nice. Maybe let's change the sound a little bit. Can we add brightness to the resonator 1 brightness? Is that something I can velocity thinging? No. Tell you what, let's bring in an expression control and then we can. Let's use an expression control here. Expression control, going to bring that in. We're going to take the velocity and we're going to map that to brightness on resonator 1. We're going to map you to here. Yeah, too much. Nice. Let's change the voices. Let's give it 8 voices. super nice. I can hear that clicking a little bit, so I'm gonna turn up the rise and there we go. So now this isn't jumping immediately on the brightness. Tell you what, let's actually bring in a random one. Let's make it bipolar and let's map that to the noise. Super nice. Let's leave that like that for now. How does this sound if we randomize the pitch? Super nice. Okay, let's bring in a scale device in here. What do we choose? F Dorian. Now, I could, of course, do it to the global scale, but I like to have different scale devices in because sometimes it's nice to actually have them on different scales, slightly different scales. That's where some of those crunchy notes were coming from. This is quite nice. Okay, so I'm going to now group that. And I'm going to create a little sub happening underneath. So to do that, I'm going to bring in instruments. Let's just do this with an operator. Okay, so I now need to bring in another scale device in here, MIDI effects scale. F Dorian. Oh, not sharp 4, just F Dorian. And I'm going to constrain the key range, so it's only everything below C3. Yeah, so it's not always triggering the sub. Nice. Now let's make it a sub. Let's bring in a pitch device. Let's put that down 2 octaves. Yeah. Maybe just 1 octave. Yeah, now let's make it mono. Let's give it a bit of release. Yeah, and a bit of... Yeah, nice. How does that sound together? Still a bit too much on the sub. That's a bit nicer. Let's bring the sub down a little bit. And let's make the sub a bit more, or let's make it very velocity sensitive. Yeah. I really like this. Okay, on the collision, let's add an effect after here. Let's just add a little bit of reverb that we control. Let's add a reverb that we can control the send. So let's bring in. Let's use hybrid reverb. Let's use hybrid reverb. Where have you gone? Okay, so let's make this 100% dry wet. Let's make this large, bigger spaces. But let's turn the decay down to about there. Yeah, let's bring in a utility in front of that. Let's group that. Right click, create chain, so we've got a dry chain. So now this is our send into the reverb. I'm going to right click, map that to macro 1 on here, constrain the range so it never goes up above. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, nice. So that's now a reverb thing. Can I map that straight to... Alright, let's map that to macro 1 again. Alright, that's there. Now I'm going to map that to... Well, I'm going to leave that for now. Let's map some other stuff. Let's map the same stuff again. Okay, so let's change the things that we changed on here. Let's go to step 16. And the first thing I'm going to map is... Oh, I need to do this stuff on the rotating rhythm generator first. Oh, and we need to change this. We need to change this to be MIDI input and like that again. So yeah, now that's not doing anything. We turn on subdivision 2. It's still not doing anything. We need to change this note here to C#1. There we go. Okay, we're going to turn this on. We're going to do the same stuff. So we're going to right click, map that to macro 9. Let's call that speed. Let's call this... Right, let's right click, map you to macro 10. Right click, map you to macro 11, and let's change, so it's steps that I want to change. Let's call this steps 2. Steps 2 I want to change to only go up to 16. Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's doing what we want it to do. Right, now let's add some stuff from this sequencer. So the sequence length, so I'm going to uncouple those, and I'm going to right click. This is going to go to macro 12, so right click, map to macro 12, right click, map to macro 12. That's on this rack, so I need to open these up. I'm going to right click and map you to macro 12 over there. I'm going to rename this. Oh, I can't rename it. I'll rename it over here. Sequence length 2. Yeah, okay, that's doing what it's supposed to do. Now the next thing is, yeah, let's add a sort of transpose device in here for this one. Now we're going to have to do this twice for the 2 different instruments here. So let's bring in a pitch device, MIDI effects, pitch, and we're going to put that in here. And we're going to right click, let's map that to macro 2. I'm going to add another pitch device in here. I'm going to right click, map that to macro, map that to that same pitch. Let's constrain the ranges on those. Oof. Lovely. And now we're going to right click. That's going to go to macro 13. And that's going to go to macro 13 over there on the big rack. Transpose 1. Okay, right, now I have that that reverb level. Where's that gone? This is it. Yeah, right, let's map to macro 14, and then let's map that to macro 14. Okay, now macro 15 is going to be a velocity device. So I can go MIDI effects, velocity. We're going to bring that in straight after the sequences, so it kind of affects everything. Yeah. Right, let's right click, map that to macro 15. And I want this to map to macro 16, and you can go to macro 16 over there. Right, so now we've built this rack. Let's turn the other sound back on. Let's go back in here, turn it back on. So if we set these both to be the same, super nice. Let's make this. Okay, I'm going to add one more thing to the second sound there. Let's solo this. On the collision, yeah, on the collision here, I'm going to add a chord device. So we add in a harmony note. So I'm going to do that before the scale. And let's just make this a 5th. Nice. Okay. Now, let's look at how to set up these randomizing MIDI dummy clips that I set up here. So the way we're going to do that is, well, we're going to make a dummy clip. And here, I'm going to go to envelopes, and I'm going to select instrument rack, sound 1, SQ sequencer, and I'm going to find in here, random pitch is what I'm looking for. random. Maybe it's called something. Maybe it's called that. Random length, pitch scramble. Let's go here. Let's find it here. So we go back to the rack here. Where's the SQ sequencer gone on sound one? Sound one, SQ sequencer. Now if I just click on pitch random here, now when I go in here, yeah, there's selected rand pitch. Okay, so now we're going to just make this, going to put in a note for off, going to put in a point for on, then I'm going to put in another point for off like that. So it's going to randomize and then reset. I'm going to turn this to loop off, and I'm going to set this to be global, to no quantize. So now, every time I trigger this, we're getting a new random sequence of note 1. Let's do the same for note 2. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go back to this rack. I'm going to select sound 2. I'm going to open up the sequencer. I'm going to click on the randomize thing here. So now if I come in here, I can do this. Let's make that like that. Let's turn loop off. Let's set the global launch to be none. And now? Yeah. Okay. Now let's set one where it does both of them. So we've got this one here. And now we want to find SQ sequencer for part 1. SQ sequencer. Random pitch. Exactly, it's already selected because we just did stuff with it. So now this should let me randomize both of them. Yeah, super nice. Oh, okay, so I need to turn loop off and trigger to be, quantize to be none. And then we just do the same thing for velocity. Super nice. So now we have this fully fun thing. All of the stuff that we need to worry about changing is all here in the macros. We can change the speed as well. That's got all the way down there. I need to turn that back to 64, Euclid fill 2. So what I was finding super nice to play with, let's bring this back up to be the same speed. It's just finding patterns. Well, that's a nice pattern. I wonder what happens if I extend the length of sequence 1. Let's turn the delays down a bit, turn the verbs down a bit. Let's make it 5 steps. So now we're getting these patterns that are sort of phasing against each other and they're sort of really disregarding the bar lines as well. Let's turn this down to 14 and let's turn the fills down to 9. Like this, that we can keep the rhythmic patterns the same. We change the notes. Change the velocity pattern. Let's make this 3. Oh, that's nice. What happens if we make this 8? So the way we can sort of make these patterns unfold and contract. Unfold, interact with each other. Now the last thing I did was add this sort of clicky, glitchy sound. So what I'm going to do now is redo that. So let's go Shift Command T. Let's make a new MIDI channel. I'm going to use a sample from the rampling rack that I made. It's a sort of Glitchy Clicks sample. Let's turn that. Let's bring it in. Where's it gone? Glitchy Click. Right, let's drag that into here. MIDI 1. Oh, wait, I need to have MIDI 1. Oh, cancel. Need to come here. MIDI 1, drag here. Automatically loads it into a simpler. We're going to go on slice mode. We're going to move you up to here. Now I'm just going to program in C1, which is the first note when we're in slice mode. Duplicate it all the way across. I'm going to make these 65% random. Let's press play. That's now triggering the first of these. Right, let's randomize that. So let's bring in a MIDI effect. Random. And we want choices 7 because there's only that many samples here. Now we turn the charts up. Nice. And let's OTT that. Let's OTT that. OTT. Too much. All right, let's randomize the panning on that. Nice. So now we have this rack. I just spent a little bit more time sort of dialing in and fine-tuning all the sounds over here on this main rack that you heard at the start. Patreon members will be able to download this rack. Link in the description below if you want to do that. Let's turn that back on. Hope you had fun with this. See you next time.